The first thing we're going to look at with starts is addressing which end of the line to start at. 99% of the time it's going to be the end closest to the top mark. So if I've got a mark up here and a start line down here, you would assume that the starters in a lot of cases are trying to have that start line at 90 degrees and centralised that way. Now, in most cases it's not. So we need to decide which end do we wish to actually start at. So, simple question. Exaggerated. Which end is actually closer to the top mark? So if I look at that diagram there for a second, you'll notice that that side of my triangle is much shorter than that side of my triangle. I know it seems exaggerated here on the board, but it makes a big difference on the racetrack. So the first assessment you've got to make is which end of my line is going to be closer. So in that case, you can see that if that's my boat, that's my pin, I'd have a pin end start here. I'll address how to pick that in a second. If I grab the blue texture and I'll just do the opposite way, you'll notice that in the blue diagram, the boat end is the favoured end, and that's when we see the big jumble up at the boat. So, how do we assess which end is closer? There's a variety of ways, depending on if you've got a compass in the boat, how big your boat is, what equipment's in the boat. In an NS, I try and keep it simple. In our case, I'll try and sail my boat to the middle of the line, somewhere roughly in the middle of the line, and I'll just point it until the jib is pointing straight at my mast. So I'll point the boat head to wind. So I'll sail in there with a little bit of speed. I'll put the crew on one side of the boat, the skipper on the other side of the boat, so the boat's balanced and we can point head to wind. As my boat shoots up head to wind, you'll notice there that wind's coming straight down the board, by the way. If we look at our red diagram here for a second, which is going to be a pin end favour, you'll notice that the nose of my boat actually points more towards the pin end than it does towards the boat end. And it's just a really simple way of doing it, it's just to shoot the breeze. The thing I've always practiced with all my crews is there's a routine before the start, and part of the routine is to shoot the breeze, and if the breeze is shifting around, we'll shoot the breeze again with 3 minutes to go in the sequence to pick which end of the line we're going to go to. Now, hopefully that makes sense to people. It's a really easy thing to do. Just point your boat head to wind so that your jib is flapping and pointing at your mast, and whichever end of the line your bow is pointing more towards, that's the end you want to start at. The issue comes with the next part. In another video we're going to talk about which side of the course you want to go, because the first shift is going to be an important thing that you need to recognise. In most cases you want to start at the favoured end of the line. Most, but it's not always the case. And the reason I'm going to give is really quickly here for a second. If I have a start boat, a start line, and a pin end, you also need to make a decision on which side of the course you want to go. And that might influence which end you start at. If I want to go to the right side of the course, I really do need to start at the boat. If I start at the pin, even if it's a pin end favoured and I want to go right, chances are I'm going to be locked in by all the boats above me for a fair way out here until they all tack off. So I do need to pay attention to that. If I want to go to the left side of the course, I'm definitely going to start at the pin. If I don't know where I'm going to want to go, it's one of the rare occasions I might use this middle section of the line, because the middle of the line is going to allow you to go either direction in most cases. And now we break the box up. Coming into the boat, we have what's called the starboard tack lay line. And that defines one boundary of the box. Our main boundary of the box is obviously the start line itself, because we don't want to be on the course side of that. So we've got a line that comes in here, that's for the starboard tack lay line. We also have its matching partner over here, which is the pin starboard tack lay line. And they're two easy boundaries. They're easily definable and you can find them. Now when I was working with the kids a lot, I had to come up with names that the kids would remember. For you older generation, you'll remember National Lampoon's Vacation, the first one, where they travel to Wally World. And this space over here, I've wonderfully called Wally World, because to me, that whole area out there is like a giant theme park. It's where you go to play bumper boats. And many of you know that you've been out there and the amount of crashes you get, the amount of things that happen to you as you try to get run into the back of the start boat. It's a crazy, dangerous place to be, and even I'm not brave enough to go there because I get scared in places like that. So, in my case, I avoid Wally World. I don't like to get damage to the boat. The second side, the port hand side, this space out here, we had a nice name, we called that Dear God. I called that Dear God because you're after one of two miracles. If your boat drifts below that starboard tack lay line into the pin, it was, Dear God, please give me a miracle. I need to pinch back up above that buoy. Please, dear God, let me get above that buoy. And in most cases, that doesn't happen. And the regatta that we just had, I watched a couple of times where boats actually got a knock and had to spin around and then had to do a massive recovery afterwards. The other reason I call it Dear God is because you're going for the port tack at the pin and it's, Dear God, please let me cross the fleet. So again, it's another area I try to avoid. If I'm setting up in my starts, I won't be on the pin lane, I'll be above it somewhere just so I've got some control, because I don't want to have to ask for a miracle coming into the start line. So they're the first two areas. Now this is the area that's going to scare most people. If I come back from the line, the last section of my start box, so my start box is this zone made up by this parallelogram. If I'm out the back of the start box, and this is the one that people seem to struggle with a lack of boat control, you end up in a region down here that I call coals. I don't know about everyone else, but when I seem to go to a supermarket, I always pick the wrong checkout. I always pick the slowest moving checkout, and I stand in queue and I stand in queue and I wait and I wait and I wait and I watch everyone else get to the front and disappear out of the shop while I'm still standing in queue. That's how I feel about this area down here. If you're back here, and you're going to notice this here for a second, even though my diagram's a bit out of scale, one boat length, two boat lengths to the back of the box. It's a 2 boat length box. If you're behind that 2 boat lengths, that means you've got boats in front of you that you're now standing in queue behind waiting to start. I don't consider the start to be the second these guys drop the flag and blow a hoot. That's not when you start. To me, a start isn't when you cross that line. To me, a start is the moment that you have clear air going up the course and sailing where you want to start. Now, if you start in the second row or the third row or the fourth row or the fifth row, standing in queue down here in Coles, you might not get clear air until you get to the top mark, at which point that's when I'll say you've started the race. You've started the race when you can sail your own race, and that might be the first reach. So for me, we're avoiding Coles, we're avoiding Dear God, and we're avoiding Wally World, and they've all got their reasons, and hopefully you understand their reasons.